Hey bosses, just a reminder, the Nomad Summit is coming up, and this is your chance to meet some of the great guests, a ton of the listeners, as well as the entire Chiang Mai digital nomad and expat community. Go to nomadsummit.com for tickets, information, and I'll tell you a bit more during the break.
Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hey guys, it's Johnny and welcome to episode 212 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here in Chiang Mai, Thailand with Chapin. Chapin?
Chapin Kreuter.
Chapin Kreuter. That's a unique name.
It is, sir. Yes, it is. It's actually turns out to be a family name, but originally it was a family friend's name, but back in the past, somewhere in Germany, there was a Chapin in the family, so it worked out.
Oh, that's cool. Have you ever met any other Chapins?
One in preschool, and then I have met a few people with the last name Chapin.
How ironic is it that in preschool you met someone with your name and then never again?
It is weird. Yeah, that's true.
Well, we are not living normal lives out here, so it's good to have a non-normal name.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a good life out here in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, and actually just for your work even. I mean, you're telling me that we're in Chiang Mai, which is in the mountains, and you teach surfing.
That's correct.
In Chiang Mai.
That's correct.
So how did all that happen?
So, like you, I mean, when you discovered your diving, I had been living in Nicaragua for, the better part of the last 13 years, solid 10 years at least, since 2005. I'm just living the dream. On the beach with my friends, the best people in the world, surfing every day. We had boats. I mean, I couldn't, every single day, watching the sun go down, I'm like, life doesn't get any better than this. And, times change. I brought a lot of tourists down to Nicaragua. Nicaragua became one of the hottest surf destinations in the world. My partners wanted out.
When did you actually start? How did you even get down there the first time?
I got there in 2005 because of a friend who started a surf camp down there, who was starting a surf camp and invited me down to help him out. So I flew down, quit my job within 2 weeks. I was parking cars.
Okay, so you were a valet parker.
Correct.
In Costa Mesa.
Correct.
You know what's funny? I was a valet park in Costa Mesa.
Really? Balboa Bay Club?
No, I was working for a company called Class Act Valet. We would do events, and I would do there's a bar called Heroes or Hero Bar. I think it wasn't Costa Mesa. It was one of the neighboring cities. Maybe Fulton, downtown Fulton. I was parking cars, and then every weekend I would do valet at different events, usually for rich guys.
Was your boss named Rocky?
No, it wasn't. That would have been funny.
I also worked for a company like that until I got the job at the Bay Club. But yeah, I was parking cars, bumped into a buddy. He's like, hey, I just got married to a Nicaraguan and bought some land. I'm starting a surf camp. I said, sign me up, dude. I will be down. I'll quit my job and be there in 2 weeks. He said,
how old are you at the time?
I was 24, going on 25. I had just come back from traveling. I had been on the road for a year. Came back home after that year, got a job, was home like 9 months, and it was like, this isn't the life for me. It's time to hit the road again.
So you were traveling, was it just like a worldwide backpacking trip, or what was it?
Yeah, so I'll take you back a little bit. So basically, around 17 years old, I kind of had an epiphany, an awakening, where I just felt that I wasn't really taking responsibility for my life and myself, and the unhappiness that I had felt for like the last 17 years.
Well, in high school?
Yeah, actually. I was fortunate enough, my dad used some of my college fund that my grandmother had left me and took me and my sister to Europe. And I was standing in the Louvre one day and just all of a sudden realized I was surrounded by so much beauty. And it literally enveloped me, like this just overwhelming joy and just incredible awe of all this beautiful art. And I was like, I want to sustain this. Like, how can I sustain this? And so the conclusion came to me, like, I have to get back to Europe. That's where the beauty is. And, well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm not good at really anything except for athletics, and I'm a pretty decent soccer player, so why not try to become a professional athlete? And so at 17 years old, I decided I was going to try to play professional soccer. So I spent the next 5 years working my ass off, walked on at UCLA, made the team, won a national championship, and then nobody came a knocking. So what am I going to do? I call a friend who happens to be playing in Belgium. I say, can I come sleep on your couch? I'm going to knock on every single door in Belgium and see if I can get a trial. Flew to Belgium, walked on to 2 teams. Didn't make the teams.
Wow. So when you say walk on, what does that actually mean?
It means that I literally had a backpack and my boots in my backpack and a home base in Antwerp, Belgium, and I would take trains to Brussels and to various parts of Belgium and literally walk into these stadiums hoping that I would bump into somebody who could help me. And
was it like during their practice? Or?
Yeah, I'd practice, or I'd cold call. There was a website that someone had turned me on to called International Soccer Server, which had every single team in the world from like first division all the way down to like fourth division phone numbers. So I was cold calling teams, and some would say, yeah, come, and others wouldn't pick up, so I'd just go to them.
That's cool, man. That is dedication. I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was hard. And after, not making the teams, I kind of came to the conclusion that I was really happy with what I had achieved, and it was just kind of time to hang up my boots because I didn't have anything left in me to keep trying.
You know what's kind of funny is I think there's two ways to interpret that, right? Like somebody could say to you, like, like, oh, I guess this wasn't meant to be, or like, oh, maybe, like, oh, maybe you just weren't, good enough at soccer, to make pro level teams, and it can be the biggest insult of your life. It can be like you're a piece of crap. You're unworthy. Like, you're a loser. Or it can just mean, like, oh yeah, maybe you're not like, maybe you're just not pro level at football. Maybe you should just be doing something else. And it's crazy because I think that I would never even back in the like real world. I would never even think of saying those words to someone because it would crush them. But I feel like someone could say that to you now, and you could be like, "Yeah, I wasn't pro level. I wasn't like, I just wasn't. That just wasn't my calling. I'm doing something else."
I will say that yes, I came to the conclusion, like in that moment, that I was standing on the soccer field with these players that I was playing up against and trying to make the team with. That I knew instantly I wasn't as good as them. Like, it wasn't even a heartbreaking like conclusion to come to. It's like, I am so far outclassed by these guys, and this was the first division team in Belgium. Then I went and got to the second division, and I walked on and I played a game with them, and I was easily as good as their best player, but I made the fatal flaw of not listening to what the coach wanted me to do, and I thought I would show him that I could really play, and afterwards he said, thanks for coming out. And just seeing the dynamic and how the professional game changes when you become a professional. It's like, it's a business now, like you talked about, becoming a professional diver. It's like, takes the joy out of it. And I was very comfortable with saying, like, I was so proud of myself for having achieved what I had, and just hanging up my boots was a natural next step.
Yeah, I love that, because there's so many people that would just take that and their life, that would be the highlight of their life. That would be the high point of their life. And for the rest of their life, it's downhill from there. People will just reminisce about how great they were, Al Bundy style.
Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, trying
yeah.
to throw the football over the mountain.
And it's sad. It really is sad. There's some people that they're like, well, but I was good, and and I'm sure you were very, very good in college, and that was a great time in your life. And then instead of just cherishing that, some people might be like, no, like, that's it. And you've kind of proven now that there's can be so many more chapters in someone's life. It's almost like the failed actor or actress that they tried, and now they're washed up. They're 40 or 50, still trying to break in. And it's like, no, like, just give up. Like, do something else. It doesn't mean you're a loser. It doesn't mean you're not worthy. It just means this wasn't your calling, or you're just outclassed, or there's just people who are going to be better than you. And it's not a bad thing.
100%. I think it's a fine line, though, like, and knowing when to call it quits, because I think that you can quit too early. A lot of people quit right before they're about to be a success. And it's knowing intuitively when it is time to say, enough's enough. And that's a question you have to come to within yourself.
I think that's a really good point, especially because it's a struggle, even trying to figure out if you're good enough, and then there's going to be people holding you back, keeping you down. So I guess the advice to someone would be, do it to 100%, and then keep trying for another 30% or 3 years or something, and then after that you're like, okay, I really tried it, and I tried a little bit more. Like, I know, okay, that's it.
Yeah, I had this question come up recently with a mutual friend of ours, Chris Reynolds, and I asked, when is it time to kind of quit this online surf instruction that I've been trying so hard to cultivate and make a viable business? He's like, well, does it still bring you joy? Do you still like doing it? I said, yeah. He's like, well, it's not time to quit yet. If you are working at 100% and you're still getting joy out of it, but not the success, well, it's still not time to quit yet. But if you're working at 100% and you hate it every single second of every single day, then you should probably reconsider what you're doing.
Yeah, especially because the work itself, not only would it not be gratifying to you, but your customers will see it and they're not going to be inspired by it. It's not going to be high quality work if you're just doing it because you don't enjoy it. and it'll just naturally go downhill. But if people can tell you're passionate about it, you're excited about it, you're constantly trying to make it as good as possible, eventually people will see that, it'll catch on, and then you'll be successful with it.
I totally agree with that, and I've really cultivated my life and style around that sort of philosophy, where as long as I love it and I'm giving it 100%, that will be a reflection of the service that I provide, and people will find me and love me. But you do have to be good at sales and marketing as well, because if you're not, they don't find you.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. But I definitely want to talk about how you became an online surf instructor. But first, let's talk about, how did you even start surfing?
That's a great question, because a lot of my friends who started surfing had a father, an uncle, somebody who took them out, cultivated that love of the ocean within them. And I don't have that story. I kind of had parents who were always supportive and took me to the beach, but didn't surf. And then one day there was a surfboard in my neighbor's garage that kind of caught my interest, and I just said I want to try it. And a friend's father was a surfer, so they reached out to him and said, hey, we take Chapin surfing, which never really happened. And I kind of kept pressing my dad, I want to try surfing. So one day after school, he just took me down to the local surf shop, bought me a wetsuit, we got a board, and he took me up to Seal Beach, just because that's where they told him to take me as like a 8-year-old boy. He stood on the beach and I went out, and that was it. Like,
wow.
I kept wanting to go every weekend, and he would take me to Doheny. And I mean, I don't think he enjoyed it that much, because he didn't surf. He'd sit there freezing his ass off watching me on the beach, just like not very successful at surfing. And the bug kind of bit me, and then through, again, just various friends finding out, oh, they surfed, and I started making more friends who surfed. And to be quite honest, surfing was never something that came naturally to me. It's been probably the reason I've stuck with it for so long, because it's something that I've never been very good at, and had to really kind of stick with it and cultivate my skill set in a unique way, which is why I think I'm such a good instructor now, because I'm really good at articulating the necessary techniques to help people get to the next level.
That's a really good point. I think people who are naturally good at things are the worst instructors, because they would just, it just came so naturally to them. They're like, just do it, and like, it's sad, but like if you, back in the day, like when I was kind of going through my phase of trying to learn how to meet girls, you would think that like the best person to teach you how to pick up a girl would be like the like naturally good looking suave guy, right? But they're the worst. They're like, oh, just stand around and the girl will come up to you and then just be like, hey, and you're like, and then what? And they're like, that's it. And you're like, I tried that, it doesn't work.
100%.
And you kind of have to have like the nerdy geeky guy who like like just would never ever naturally be able to talk to a girl because he's shy, to be able to like break it down and be like, okay, like, this is body language, this is eye contact, this is whatever. So it's like a sad joke, but like, every single guy in like the pickup community or like, is a nerd. It's like they're just, they're the dorks, because if you were naturally a good, like a confident guy, you never would have even looked into it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I have tremendous respect for what that subculture of people have done for individuals. I mean, including myself, I've read the books. I'm a huge fan of the books and the ideas, psychological ideas behind it. Not like I'm interested in manipulating women or people in general, but I do think that it proposes a certain idea and approach to socializing with the opposite sex or whatever, your preference is, in a way that I would have never considered. Like I grew up with parents that were always like, be polite, open the door and tell her she's beautiful and pay for dinner and buy her drinks and da-da-da-da. And like that only got me a lot of, heartache and frustration when I could have been, maybe a little bit more aloof and not like pouring my heart out on the first date or something like that. That really would have maybe perked her interest a little bit more. So I think there's a huge misconception of this whole community as just being like these sleazy dudes trying to get girls into bed, when I think it's more of an idea that no, like some people actually need to be retaught because we weren't taught the right way, like how this attraction game works.
Yeah, we're taught at all,
Right.
And yeah, it's unfortunate that it ends up being, a bit sleazy, or guys trying to impress other guys, just because finally they're like, oh my God, like I finally got a phone number. Now let me get 30 phone numbers, and now let me try to be, player of the year. But yeah, you're right, where I think the heart of it is people genuinely wanting to improve their social skills, be able to just, find love or find a partner in life. But the reason why, I'm glad, I read the books, I overcame my shyness, but then dropped all of it and moved away from it is because how sleazy it ends up getting, and people just kind of get stuck in this kind of I don't know, like a kind of self-destructive kind of area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, giving the people the key to the castle can lead them down a dangerous road if they don't really understand the power that they're wielding. Because it can, if you really hone in on certain aspects of it, can turn into a very powerful tool.
Yeah, or at least perceived, right?
Right.
Maybe it's not powerful. Maybe just a bunch of dorks thinking that they have these magic spells. But what I actually did learn from it is one of the most attractive qualities is being passionate about something, genuinely being passionate about something, and not being desperate. Not being a needy, desperate guy with no hobbies and no life. Actually, this is why surfer guys get so many girls, not just because they're in shape, but because they're not desperate guys. They genuinely love surfing. They're passionate about it. When you talk to them about it, they're excited. They have a lot of stories to tell. They've been traveling. They're in the moment. They're they are an attractive person. And I think that's kind of the key element that a lot of guys kind of miss growing up, because we're still hung up on thinking oh, we need a girlfriend, or I'll be a loser, or I'll be alone forever. Versus if we just put that aside and say, let's just focus on finding a passion, whether it's surfing or scuba diving or building a business. Most of it comes naturally. Besides, the eye contact and basic social skills, which unfortunately, if you older brother, your parents didn't teach it to you, your dad didn't teach it to you, maybe really hard to get on your own. But I think a big part of it is just figuring out who we are, figuring out who our authentic selves are, and actually just being an attractive person.
Yeah, I agree. And I was lucky enough to find something that I really fell in love with that took my focus away from other aspects. Yes, I was always attracted to women and wanted women in my life and to date women and be loved and all the things that I think a lot of people want. But it wasn't the end-all be-all for me. I always had the escape to go surf, and that consumed a lot of me as well. So having that, I think, can really, whatever it may be for you, be tremendously helpful. And trying to find it, I think, is highly encouraged.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I wish I would have found something like surfing earlier. Luckily, I found scuba diving. And that's actually a big reason why I left LA in 2008, is because I found scuba diving, and I finally found a passion. And it was the first time I cared about something more than I did my normal life. So even though at that time, and I'm really happy, I want to say scuba diving or Thailand in general just saved me, because I was going down this rabbit hole of living in LA, going to nightclubs and bars, trying to learn how to pick up girls, thinking that would make me happy, when ultimately it was me being insecure and trying to fill that void in my life. Versus when I went to Thailand and I discovered scuba diving and I found that passion, I realized none of that really matters. And somehow, magically, because I started being passionate about something else, naturally I became more attractive.
Mm-hmm. I think, that question that people ask themselves, well, how do you find what you're passionate about? What do you do to find it? And there's not an easy answer, but I can say this. If you've been in the same town doing the same thing for the last 10, 15, 20 years and you haven't found it yet, there's a huge indication that you probably need to leave that place for a small period of time. Set your sights on something that's uncomfortable, like a place that you probably wouldn't normally choose to go, and then go there. Because what happens is then you're constantly encountering new stimuli that you've never had to deal with before, so your reaction is going to be tremendously authentic and real. And you're going to learn a lot about yourself in those moments that then are going to help point you in the right direction of what you might be passionate about.
I definitely agree. And I think also if you see something that you think that you might be excited to try, just because you don't have access to it or the first person says no, kind of just like with the surfing, you didn't have someone to take you, you didn't have a board, you didn't have any of that. The fact that you just kept asking, kept thinking about it, kept, trying to figure out a way, eventually it came to fruition.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. I mean, how much of this is obsession, do you think, of, people like us doing what we do, obsessing over this idea of, designing the life in the way that we want? And I don't necessarily mean with obsession being a negative connotation, but it's like I found myself at one point like choosing to become tremendously obsessive about soccer and making it. And that propelled me in a really far way within my attempt to become a professional soccer player. And I'm finding myself choosing in a lot of ways to pursue what I'm pursuing now with the online surf instruction in an obsessive sort of way. Like I'm not willing to like let it leave my mind for fractions of a second throughout the day.
I think that's the better way to do it. And I think there's a lot of people in this community, who have that mindset, who they just get fixated. They're like, yeah, let's do this, let's do it. I think for me, it was kind of the opposite, where it was really hard for me to be passionate about anything, besides scuba diving is the first thing. I think with kind of life now, it's more what I really don't want to go back to. I guess you can almost say I'm obsessive about not going back to the 9 to 5, not going back to a life that is meaningless, that I hate, not having to deal with all that crap. That's what I'm obsessive about avoiding.
I hear you, and I'm the same. Like, I do obsess over those thoughts as well. Like, at this point, Johnny, I'm almost 40 years old, and I've never had a 9 to 5. I've pieced my life together with part-time jobs and living in these tropical places on beaches. Like, for 2005 to 2010, the best 2 years I ever did, I made $5,000.
Wow.
Like, I was not making money. I was just living a dream that was a dream. And I would have continued to like to live that dream, but, sometimes life says, no, it's time to grow as a person, and we're going to show you the reasons why you need to grow as a person, and this isn't going to become sustainable anymore, or this isn't going to be sustainable anymore. So, that happened for me in 2014, end of 2013, and, you get a call from family like, Mom's not doing good, you might want to think about coming home. And I didn't have any money to go home. And that's when the light bulb was like, oh, fuck, like, it's not just about me. Like, there's got to be a point where I have enough financial, like, something in the bank that I can get myself home to at least see a loved one before they pass, and then to have enough in the bank, ideally, to support them. Because Mom didn't have insurance. She couldn't, afford to go to a doctor. Not that she would have, but it's like I would have loved to have the financial means to, like, take her and get her what she needed to be comfortable before she passed. So that's kind of like my new obsession, is like finding a way to, like, secure the futures of the people I love the most,
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that so much, because I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. Like, in the Nomad community, it's all about the travel photo, how amazing life is, how easy life is, coconuts, beaches, bikinis. But this is real life, especially as we get older and we have more responsibilities. But our parents are eventually going to get older. It's like 2 out of 3 people end up getting cancer at some point in their life. Especially as we live longer. And eventually, we can't just make enough to get by. We have to not only take care of ourselves, but we have a responsibility to take care of, people that we love, especially our parents that raised us.
It is odd when you think about American culture and then living in a culture like Thailand, Central America, where the whole family structure is set up so that they have so many children as an insurance policy. So when they do get older, they can live with, their children in their houses and be taken care of. And in America, we don't have that system. And a lot of, unfortunately, old folks are put into homes, and, like, some are just forgotten about. I know my mom's dying wish was to be able to die at home. And, like, I couldn't afford to make that happen for her. So she had to die in a home. Wow. And it's like heartbreaking when you have to make that choice for somebody you love so much, and all she wants to do is go home, dude, and you can't afford to, like, make that happen for her.
Man, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Hey, but it's real life, and I don't mind sharing it. It's hard, and it's a decision I don't want to have to make again. So again, talking about obsessions and passions, like, yes, a lot of what I do is selfish because I want to design my life with a balanced, healthy, like, I love my life, but I'm getting to do what I want, but there's also, like, a huge responsibility that I want to take for the people that might find themselves in a situation like that in the future,
Yeah, and I don't wish that upon anyone listening to this, right? Because we talk about the benefits of location independence, of travel, of following your passion, and they're all true. But one thing that a lot of people ignore is the real life responsibilities. And I think this is why I like talking about, like investments and future planning, even though it's not a sexy topic that most nomads don't want to hear about. I mean, it was really hard, like getting people to even listen to the Invest Like a Boss podcast, even though it's free. And people already like this podcast, so you'd think they would like that. But a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to think about it, or I don't have money to save. And that might be true right now, but because, you know, we're okay just living off of, you know, $800 a month for ourselves. But what I'm trying to get everyone to think about is the future and the other people in our lives that we can help. You know, for anyone who says money doesn't matter, it doesn't matter up to a point, but it also can mean, you know, the difference between, you know, being able to take care of someone you love and then being in a position where like we feel helpless.
Yeah, man, totally. And I think, you know, going back to what you said, like, you know, some people don't feel like they have the money to save for the future. Like, we both read The Richest Man in Babylon. Like, if you saved even $1, paid yourself first, save a small percentage of that paycheck every month, no matter what it is, and then at the end of whatever 3-6 months a year, you put that into investment and forgot about it, like 50 years. I mean, his dad put like $5,000 away from when he was like, you know, 10 years old. My dad's never touched it. And, you know, like 50 years later, 60 years later, that's, you know, almost $100,000. So it doesn't take a lot if you're willing to like not touch it and just sit on it until that day comes when you really do like really need it. Like, you really don't need it when it's like you're down and out and you're feeling a little like, oh, I should just go get drunk tonight. Like, you don't really need that. So
yeah, it's powerful. Like, compound interest is so powerful. All right, bosses, if you've enjoyed the podcast so far, you're going to love the live event. It's called the Nomad Summit. We do it every year, and this is our 5th year doing it in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where it all started. And it's the mecca of digital nomads, location independent entrepreneurs, as well as people who just have chosen location independence and want to either start or level up their online business. Last year, we had over 400 attendees, and this year, we're shooting for it to be even bigger, and we would love to see you there. Make it happen. I know Chiang Mai is far for a lot of you, but I promise once you're out there, you're going to love it. You're going to meet a ton of great friends, new business partners, new connections, and it'd be great to meet all of you as well. So go to nomadsummit.com to get tickets, and I hope to see you there. That's nomadsummit.com to get tickets and information. Probably the easiest way to put it would be, imagine yourself on the other side where you couldn't pay off your credit card bill in time and you're starting to accrue interest on it. Everybody knows that within months, within a year or 2-3 years, you're going to be so screwed that it's going to be almost impossible to climb out of that debt. Now imagine the flip side where you invested the same amount of money. Instead of, you know, owing 15 grand on a credit card, you invested 15 grand. You know, instead of spending, you know, $100 here and there on crap that you probably don't need, buying stuff on Amazon, going to bars, you know, opening a tab. Imagine if you took that $100 every time you were going to open a tab, instead you put it into an investment. And at the end of, you know, X amount of, you know, months or years, you have 15 grand in an investment, making you that interest, and that's compounding. It's the same thing. It just all of a sudden it just climbs. Like over the years, it just goes out of control, which is in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, I connected with your talk the other day, and I'm assuming you took that out of Warren Buffett's playbook when you put your money in the Vanguard 500. You know, Buffett said that's what he's going to do with anybody who he's managing money for. It's just like when he dies, all their money is going into that because he's betting on the American economy. And I mean, just makes so much sense. You just have to be patient. You know, put a little bit away and be patient.
Yeah. And that's actually going to be my talk for the next Nomad Summit, is going to be how anybody can retire as a millionaire. And really geared towards digital nomads, people who think that they can just kind of enjoy life and not think about the future. It's not that I want to like be that, you know, throw the, you know, cob in the wheel and just be like, nope, stop enjoying life. You have to start thinking about your future. I want this to be sustainable. I want this to be a lifestyle where people wake up when they're 40 or wake up when they're 50 and they have enough to sustain themselves. They're not fucked. You know, they're not like we're trying to rely on social security or the government paying for them, which is probably not going to happen. And I want people to, you know, to be able to enjoy life now, enjoy living in Thailand, enjoy surfing in Nicaragua, maybe have a few less beers, buy a few less things that they don't really need, or just focus, put in a few extra hours a week to make more money, to optimize better, to work harder, and then be able to save up enough money where we can all retire with $1 million in the bank. And I know that is possible. Like, doing the math, and I've actually done this talk, a similar talk at the dropshipping retreat in Bali last week, and people, their minds are blown. They're like, I can't believe that math works out to be that way. And that's something I can do. And that's kind of the legacy I want to leave the Nomad community. It's not just getting people started, but making sure that at the end, wherever this crazy nomad journey goes, that they're not going to be home broke and thinking like, I got to work at Walmart until I'm 70.
I like that, dude. And that's powerful. And I thank you for, taking that upon yourself to help people see that. I mean, I'll definitely take you up on some brainstorming ideas for my own portfolio. One other topic I think, for any listeners out there who's looking for a niche to maybe dive into is the niche of, people that are 60 and above or at that retirement age but can't, to maybe teach them some computer skills and how to go online and become a drop shipper, because physically they're obviously not going to do the warehouse thing anymore, work in a warehouse. But they can all learn how to use a computer in a powerful way that they're not getting the education on right now. So I think that's a niche that I think somebody could really take and run with and make, a good living at is teaching the older generation how to use a computer and make money online.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really well needed as well. What's funny is my first employee she was this retired old lady from, I think she was from South Carolina. She had a heavy accent. And I tried to teach her the tech skills. It was hard because, I would do it over the phone. But she would answer my store's customer service calls. People would call in. You normally just asking, like, how long does something take to ship, or do you have it in stock? And she just, for the life of her, she couldn't figure out how to log in and check inventory, even though I tried to explain it, multiple times. But at the end of the day, she was the best employee ever, because every time someone would call, and I would know because I would re-listen to the recorded calls, even though she couldn't answer the question, they would be so just like kind of just happy that they have this sweet old lady answering the phone that they just were like, oh, don't worry, like, I'll just order it online, like, I'm sure it'll come when it comes.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, yeah, and I can relate to that whole inability to even figure out how to log in and check stuff. Like, I lived in a small fishing village. I have, for the last 10 years, and the first 5 years we didn't have internet. And I didn't really have any need except for communicating with family with email. So once a month, I'd, an hour into the nearest city, get online for a few hours, email my family, and I did that for 5 years. And so when I did come to this conclusion that it was time to go online and take my business online and really try to make a go of it, this, digital nomad location and lifestyle, like, I was seriously lacking the skill set to use a computer, to understand how this all was put together. And, I was telling you, I moved to Pi. I followed a girlfriend to Pi and was living up there while she taught Kung Fu. And I was like, I'm going to do this 6 months. I got to make, at least $400 a month. And after failing, not making any money after 6 months and going home, and after the first year of kind of understanding a few things, I just started realizing, like, I'm not even close to the starting line yet. Like, this is going to take me at least another year or two to really understand the skills necessary to make online business. So, for the older generation out there who are just so afraid of technology and computers and stuff, like, that's really where they're operating from. Like, they spent so many years with this idea that they were promised Social Security and they're going to be taken care of, and they're not. Their physical abilities have left them, and now it's like, oh, do I really have to learn this? And it's like, yeah, you do. Let's try to make it simple on you, and we'll take you down a path that's not going to be too complicated.
Yeah, and it's a hard situation, right? Where I don't, I feel bad for anyone in that situation where they didn't grow up using the internet and kind of just passed them by, and now they're in a place where it's kind of needed, right? Like, even if you're not trying to run a business, you kind of need the internet to do anything. Like, oh, you want to pay your bills? Yeah, log online to do that. And people are like, how do I do that? You want to order, cable? Log into your online account, because it's inefficient to have to call in and talk to someone. That's phasing out. That's almost gone. So whether you want to work online or not, whether you're 16 or you're 84, you're going to have to learn how to use the internet. And a part of me feels so much empathy for people. I feel so bad that there's it's a big learning curve. It's huge. I can't imagine never using the internet, and all of a sudden having to learn how to do everything from scratch. I like the idea of having classes for people kind of step by step. I also really like recommending things like using, instead of having them use Windows and then be like, okay, well, don't click that. That's a spam pop up. They're like, what? What's going to happen? It's a virus, or like, I can't turn on my computer because every time I do, they ask me to buy whatever. I recommend people use a Chromebook, which is Google's operating system, where you open it up, you have one password, your Google password, and then everything else they kind of remember because it's in Google's system. And then you can't download anything. There's no viruses. There's no updates needed. There's no pop-ups. It's just Chrome. So you just have internet. I bought that for my parents. Got them a Chrome base, which is the desktop version of it. And it's made their life so much easier. They just they go on. They click YouTube or they click Google. And that's it.
That's a great solution. Yeah, I should think about that for my aunts.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also on the flip side, I'm kind of like, look, Mom, Dad, like, you could have been learning this. The amount of time you watch TV every night, you could have been learning this. I know it's hard. I know you didn't want to learn a new skill. Maybe you're kind of hoping it was a phase and it would just pass you by and then you would never need it. But it's a little bit, I don't want to say your fault, but you had the option to learn it as it was coming out, as it was getting popular. And instead, you chose to use your time to watch useless TV. And it's hard,
It is hard. I see it too as well with my relatives who, again, kind of were promised everything's going to be okay. They worked hard, and now all they really want to do is just watch TV and eat and enjoy their desserts. But now life has caught up with them, and they're not feeling good when they're all inflamed. They don't know why. And it's all they want to do is just enjoy themselves because that's what they work so hard to do is just now I get to enjoy myself and do the eat like shit, drink as much as I want, and do drugs or whatever it may be. And it's well, now your body is destroyed. And so it's a hard thing, I think, for an older generation that was promised so much and not delivered on.
Yeah, but man, I don't want to be in that situation. I know how it feels because I that was basically me the last couple of months. I pretty much spent a year just indulging myself, eating fried chicken, burgers, sitting on the couch, just not exercising, not having any responsibilities. I had sold my store. I was making enough passive income where I could float by. I was going out to drink, pretty much every night. And I was traveling around Europe, and it was great. I loved it. I was basically retired, right? And then I felt like crap. I felt so terrible. And it wasn't until I got back to Chiang Mai and I got back onto routine. I stopped drinking, stopped eating sugar, started exercising again. Now, luckily, I have kind of a new lease on life. But it was really hard for me to do. And I can imagine it's even harder for someone when they're 55 or 65, forcing themselves to be like, all right, well, I guess retirement isn't what's cracked up to be.
Yeah. One of my good friends always says that the best way to get yourself feeling good is eat right. What does she always say, actually? She says eat right, volunteer, and do exercise. And then you won't be depressed anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Or maybe surf as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a feeling that people that surf every day they always seem really just down to earth in the moment and happy. Do you ever meet any surfers that are just super depressed and just oh fuck, hate being out here?
Oh yeah, that's one misconception about surfing, is that we're just all super in tune and just laissez-faire, life's good. The surf culture in general is actually, I think, fairly negative, pretty violent. It's called my brother-in-law calls it tropical depression, and it's actually, there's a psychological term called hedonic adaptation. When you're constantly in an environment that is full of hedonism or something you really love and want out of it, it'll start to have the opposite effect on you. So you'll get to these little surf towns in Mexico and Nicaragua, and you meet these people who should be living life, and they're all really depressed and angry.
Wow.
Kind of like the dive culture you talked about, these old expats living on these, doing the dream, living diving, but they're just angry alcoholics, So surf culture has them too.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening because they're well, what else is there? I'm already living the dream. If I'm not happy now, there's nothing else to make me happy.
100%. And then the social pressure from everyone telling you you're living the dream and you don't want to let them down by going home and explaining like, well, it turned out that I kind of got sick of the dream or whatever it may be. I mean, I see a lot of digital nomads and expats running into that trap where it's like, well, I can't go home because everyone keeps telling me that I'm living the dream because I got out, and I don't want to let them down. Yeah.
Or, you feel like yourself, like, I'm a loser. I had it all. I gave up. Now I'm working a job again.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, one lesson I learned, because that sort of happened to me in Nicaragua. The dream turned into, not a nightmare, but just wasn't what it was. And I was hanging on to that memory so tightly of what it was and wanting it to go back to that place and relive it every day. And it dawned on me one day that, everyone was always talking about, hey, you got to let go of the negative stuff. You got to just let it go, man. Like, stop dwelling on the past. Like, it's done. Like, that person, they're out of your life. Like, well, you also have to do that with the good things. If you're always constantly hanging on to that memory of what it once was when it was amazing, that also turns into a negative and can really mess with you psychologically and bring you more, down and depressed.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, right? You always, if you're only thinking about the perfect wave and like, oh, back in the day it used to be so good. Now, now it sucks. You're not going to be happy either. It's the same thing with the scuba diving. It used to be way better. And it's unfortunate with climate change. I see it firsthand. It is completely different. It's a combination of climate change, pollution, where like there's tons of plastic in the water and garbage in the water. And then like overfishing, like unsustainable commercial fishing, where, these like commercial fishermen use these crazy things like mile-long nets that just destroy everything. And I see it firsthand from 10 years till now. There is significantly less fish. The coral's all fucked. Everything's different. And I could just be angry and be like, oh yeah, it used to be so great, now it sucks. Or I can just appreciate what we have, and maybe spread the word so maybe we can preserve what we have or hopefully fix it. But at the same time, now when I go diving, I don't have the expectations of like it has to be what it used to be 10 years ago, or I'll complain about it. I would just try to enjoy what we have, encourage other people to see it while we can, and then hopefully through podcasts like this spread the word a bit about how, even though most people don't see it because it's underwater, it's a huge part of our planet, and it's something that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I'm really. If I had the money, I hate when I say that, but I'd love to donate to that kid who's cleaning up the garbage patch with his invention. That Dutch kid, he's like 15, invented that thing that's going to go out to the ocean and like clean up the Pacific garbage patch. Like, I think that's really cool.
What's funny is I actually donated to that guy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's not that the money I donated was that significant, but I think when people donate, even if you donate like, $30, instead of going out to drink one night, and then you share it, and then other people see that you donated, and then you're like, okay, like that kind of ends up becoming a big thing. The super negative part of me is like, what? It's good that he's doing that, but that's not the solution. The solution is to stop throwing crap in the ocean in the first place. I actually think that the solution is really simple. I don't know why nobody talks about this. It's economics. As long as it's cheaper for companies to produce, things in plastic, they'll always do it because it's just the cheapest option. If Nestle can sell you a bottle of water for $1.50 and the plastic bottle costs them less than a penny, they're always going to do that because it's cheap. But if that plastic bottle now gets taxed, because it's, we put on a like non-biodegradable tax on plastics, and now that bottle costs $1, they're gonna be like, oh, well, this biodegradable version of this plastic or this refillable glass version of it all of a sudden makes sense. And it's crazy that this isn't like hoping for some new technology. I have literally used like plant-based plastic that's biodegradable, and like from bags and straws, and and you can make bottles out of it. The only reason why people don't use it right now is because it's like 30% more expensive, and it's the difference between 1 penny and like 1.3 pennies, and companies just don't do it because it's more expensive.
Yeah, that bottom line that shareholders don't want to see that.
Yeah, but it's stupid. It's like,
I don't disagree.
Yeah. And I think that's the solution. Hopefully somebody hears this and kind of spreads the word, you know, I mean, and just Google it. I mean, just like Google like biodegradable straws. Like straws are great, you know, the ban straws campaign, and swap them out for paper straws or like reusable, you know, straws you have to clean, or like just no, like, oh, nobody's allowed to use straws anymore. I think it's a bit silly. I think it was a good idea to not give people straws unless they ask for it, but at the same time, just have biodegradable straws available if someone really wants one.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, here it's great. Like, you have the bamboo straws. You have so many options here that people are really conscious of that you don't see in all these types of countries. Like, if you go across the border, Laos, Vietnam, like, I don't know how many bamboo straws they're using.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, plastic is so convenient, right? People love it, right? But, like, I mean, I'm drinking out of plastic bottles, but they're refillable. Mm-hmm. And if they made it out of, you know, like corn instead or for something, and then it'll degrade even in 10 years. Like, it doesn't need to degrade today. Like, just like have things degrade in 10 years. Eventually it'll be gone. Absolutely.
There's all that, you know, also the movement of like plastic free people going around the world. And I always wonder how they do it. Like, how do they literally go around the world not consume, like buying anything with plastic, using any kind of plastic? Like, I mean, they sit in plastic chairs. So does that qualify as them still not being like...
Yeah, I mean, I think people will have their heart in a good place, so I want to support that part of them. But it's just like any extreme, you know, like people take things too far, and you know, especially if they start preaching to others, like oh, you know, like you can't do that.
Yeah, I've never been down with the preaching. That's always hard to sit there and just get talked at for hours about something I should or shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I know we kind of went on a bit of a tangent, but I think this is kind of a nice part of our lives where we have the time and we have the experience to even think about these things. I think when we're so busy at home in a job that we dislike, we don't even have time to even think about these things or meet people who, you know, who educate themselves or have like the brain space to think about the future.
Yeah, I think we were born in a generation and to families and a situation being in America that we were given the opportunity to have a certain abundance that allows us the time to think about these things. You know, like the ancient Greeks lived in a time when they could sit down and philosophize because there was an abundance. I mean, that's kind of how we're going through our lives right now in our present situation, with an abundance enabling us to sit here together and, you know, theorize, hypothesize, and have a conversation because we're not digging up the fields and trying to make it, you know, plannable for next season right now. So I think that, yeah, it's one, a part of the time in which we live, and two, maybe also there's such a need for it. I mean, we are in a very desperate situation. I mean, the climate is changing, like, for sure, and we are causing it. So it's like, what's going to happen in the next 20 years?
Yeah, that's true. But I do think it's also because we don't have a 9-to-5 job. We're not, you know, in a car for 2 hours a day. We're not stressing about bills. We're not living in one city where we're in an echo chamber of, you know, the same 10 friends and the same TV show, the same, you know, the same news. I think by traveling, being location dependent, you know, going to other countries, experiencing other cultures, it really broadens our minds and allows us to have these conversations.
Oh, that's 100% true. I definitely believe it, support you on that, where getting out and seeing how different people live and how different people go through their daily is eye-opening. And then, like I said earlier, like being exposed to situations that you've never had to deal with before and learning about yourself really puts you in a direction of like, well, what am I good at, and how can I make those things better, and then how can I use those things to then change the world for a better way.
Yeah, and part of that is actually just even sustaining yourself financially, so then you can have time to work on these things. You know, whether it's donating a portion of your profit, you know, or, you know, just, you know, having the time or the platform to be able to talk about these things. All right. So you discovered your passion of surfing. How in the world did you bring that online?
So what happened was I went home, as I said, 2014, took care of Mom with the rest of my family for that year, and about a year into it, and she was definitely on her way out, it was like clear that, well, when she did pass, I knew I didn't ever want to be in California. That's why I left in the first place. So what was I going to do? And the Nicaragua thing was still an option, but I was kind of burnt out on that scene and really wanted to figure out a way to make passive income, kind of like you talked about. Googled it. Who comes up? Pat Flynn. Instantly fell in love with his message, everything he did. I was just like, this guy is how I want to model myself in business. I want to give things away for free and make $1 million a year. Like, how can I do that? So I started following some of his steps, and it really came down to like, well, nothing that I'm doing that he tells me to do is directing me in a way that I'm going to make $1 million. But what it is doing is that it's letting me know, like, this is something that I can focus on to help me learn the skills necessary. So what I came up with was I can do online surf instruction because that's all I really know well enough to really sell online. So how am I going to do that? Okay, I'll put out a YouTube video, and then I'll make money on YouTube and like affiliate sales and all that. So I started going down that rabbit hole with the surfing thing, really just thinking that this was going to be something that allowed me to stay focused long enough to learn the skills necessary to make business online, and then I would transition into something that actually makes me money. And I still somewhat have that belief, but it is coming to a point where this thing is actually something that people want. There's a small niche of surfers out there who have turned to the online space to learn various aspects of things, YouTube being one of them, and I'm trying to fill that. And one thing I'm very good at is just, again, breaking down the technique in a very simple way that they can then take action with and see results immediately. So that's why I'm getting the types of clients that I get. And it's still small, like it's not viable yet. Like in the last 4 years, I think I've made only like $3,000 online with it. But recently we were talking about me joining this Get Shit Done retreat with Chris Reynolds. And, you know, in 1 week, with just the help of the other digital nomads around me who are more successful, they tweaked my whole email sequence and funnel. And, you know, in 7 days, I made $2,500 off course sales.
Yeah, congrats on that, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a huge win for me and really boosted my confidence and made me feel like this could become more of a viable business. And so now I'm just in push mode, you know, like I have $3,000 in the bank. I have, you know, however many months that's going to last me here in Thailand, and then I'll either go broke or I'll make it work. And if I go broke, I do have a fallback. I can go back to California where I always have a warehouse job I can plug myself into. I make good money doing that for about a month, and then I hit the road again. Nicaragua's always going to be home. I still do my surf retreats, but I've really spent the last 4 years honing in this online thing. So that's how the surf thing came about.
I love it. And it really kind of goes to show that it's good to have the passion to start something. It's good to, like, you know, put your heart into creating something, you know, great. I'm sure your videos are good, your courses are good, but as you mentioned, if you're not good at online marketing, nobody will see it. Nobody will even know where to buy it. Nobody will know how to buy it. And once they, you know, find you, they might forget you. You know, if it wasn't for the email follow-ups and say, hey, here's today's tip, or here's what you should learn next. And the fact that, you know, you get people to sign up and, you know, assuming it's great content where they don't, you know, automatically just, ask for a refund, assuming that, you know, you introduce your course to new people and they like it, not only are you going to get repeat customers, but then you're going to change those people's lives. They're going to be happy, you know, they're going to be better surfers, they're going to enjoy their life more because you put yourself in front of them. So ultimately, you're really helping everyone.
And I think that's the mindset I think all entrepreneurs have to adopt, is that in order to be successful, you have to really come from a place of how many people can I help? And the more people you help, the more financial means you'll have, you know, coming into your pockets. And it's, I think, a mindset that was uncomfortable for me to think about in that way originally, because I'm like, oh, I'm such a fraud. Like, you know, this is a joke, like whatever, you know, self-defeating thoughts people have. But I think in the end, the people who do the best or most successful really believe, like, they drink their own Kool-Aid, dude. They really believe that they're helping so many people in this way, and I'm on board for that. Like, I know I'm helping people.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what's funny is when I first was learning to surf, I was watching YouTube videos on how to surf. So even though to some people they might think like that doesn't make any sense, why would someone learn how to surf on a computer, you know, or learn from a guy who's sitting in the mountain town of Chiang Mai? And it's because a lot of these techniques, like, I guess you could hire a private instructor and you can have them teach you things in person, but a lot of times, like, people are preparing, like, you know, they're preparing for their first or their next surf trip. They're at an office, they're at home. You know, it's not convenient for them to leave, you know, Colorado to go to the beach. You know, it might be winter. Like, there's a lot of people that want to learn things online, including surfing.
100%. And I mean, my niche is very specific. Like, my primary customer base is people who've been surfing like, 10, 20 years and they haven't progressed and they can't figure out why and they're frustrated. Like they enjoy surfing. It's fun for them. It's athletic, but they come to it. They find my video and they're like, whoa, like I never thought about it like that. And then within a week, they're seeing a result that they haven't had in 20 years. And so that's my market. Like beginners, sure, I can help, but not as much. Like there's other videos and people out there who can help you with, your beginning as you begin to surf. But I'm like intermediate kind of surf coach.
That's smart. I think that's really smart to have a niche because there's so many videos on, how to pop up or like what board to use, like as a beginner. But there's probably like very few videos for the intermediate to advanced surfer.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and still my best video on YouTube right now is how to pop up. But for those listening, if you want to go check it out, like my video is way different from 99.9% of every other video on how to pop up because I take very specific actions, apply it in a video sequence that makes sense to everybody, that once you apply it, like you get a result.
Nice. So how do people find your video?
Through primarily just YouTube searches, Google searches.
Okay. So let's say if someone wanted to watch it right now, would they just search for your name?
They would search for surf progression techniques. Surf pro techniques is actually what you'd search for on YouTube. Okay. And that would come up with all my videos. And I got videos on pop-ups, videos on turns, videos on foot movement, just along the surfboard.
Okay, cool. And is it like a freemium model where they watch those videos for free on YouTube, and then if they want more, they subscribe to your
right now it's just everything that they see on YouTube will drive them to my either coaching page or like one of my gifts I give. Okay. That would then take them into more of what I do through like a email sequence that you get more free information from me until we build a relationship up that maybe you are interested in hiring me for my one-on-one, coming to one of my retreats, or buying my surf course.
Okay, that's cool. So what's your website?
It's surfprotechniques.com.
Nice. And when's the next retreat?
It will be most likely in April of 2019 down in Nicaragua.
Oh, nice. So how's the surfing in Nicaragua compared to like Bali or some other places?
Bali and Indonesia in general has the best waves in the world. There's no doubt about that. But southern Nicaragua is unique. There's probably no other place like it on earth because we have what's called the lake effect, meaning that the winds blow offshore year-round pretty much. Just due to the pressure systems of that giant lake in the center of Nicaragua. And so we have offshore winds year-round, and we have, the southern hemisphere swells hitting the coast pretty much year-round, too. Our season is from March to October, September. That's when the biggest south swells come through that are most consistent, but you can surf year-round on there, and it's just affordable. It's unique because of the wind, and the waves are consistent and good.
Okay, cool. While Bali, is it just like more hit or miss during the season, or?
No, Bali's the same. It's pretty much the same season as ours, month-wise. It's like March through October, where they get the strongest swells coming in, but it's an island, so you have to be on one side of the island for one part of the season, and then you have to go to the opposite side of the island for the other part of the season. The winds are the same. Like if it's blowing onshore on one side of this island, you go to the other side of the island, and if there's waves, then you'll have offshore winds. Bali just has a few more variables that you have to know and understand, where Nicaragua, you can kind of show up and the waves are going to be really good most of the time.
That makes sense. And why do you think California is like known as like the surf capital? Is the surfing there actually that good? Because it's freezing there, right? Yeah,
no, just history. Just the surf community kind of spawned there through, I think, companies and people within the 60s and 50s. Being born there, and I think just developing the culture there and then going to Hawaii and back and forth like that. I don't know enough about the history of surfing to answer that question really well, but I think it's more just the history of the sport kind of grew up there, and so did the industry itself, like boards and clothing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess like a lot of it's just marketing, right? Like Billabong is talking about, California, Southern California, and then people worldwide, even if they're from Ukraine or somewhere where they've never been surfing, they just associate surfing with California.
Yeah, no, it's been sold. I mean, Hollywood did a good job of selling that idea to people. I mean, being on the road, as you know, people hear that you're from California, and they're like, oh, I love tropical beaches and palm trees. And you're like, dude, it's freezing, especially where you come from. You're not going to find it in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. It's really cold. Like, if you go into the ocean in San Francisco, you are freezing year-round.
Oh, if you don't have a wetsuit, you'll die of hypothermia.
Yeah, like literally, right?
Yeah.
And it's much nicer in Southern California, but it's still cold. People still.
Oh yeah, I mean the warmest it'll get. If you're in Fahrenheit, it's like 70 degrees in the summertime, which translate to what, like 18 or 19 in Celsius, and that's the warmest it'll get, which is comfortable for sure. But that's a few weeks every summer, and then the average temp is like 65 degrees. So that's like 13, 14 degrees.
It's definitely much warmer in Bali, but there's so much garbage in that ocean, and it's like it's super polluted. So much like crap floating around. Like I tried surfing there the month or two I was there, and like literally you're just sitting out there. There's like plastic crap floating at you, like diapers floating at you, and then getting ear infections because it's crap in the water. It's such a shame.
Yeah, it's real too. I mean, like you said, like there's actually you could Google it, and it's like Google like surf shot trash Bali or something like that. And there's a guy in a barrel, and the whole wave is folding over him, and it's just a sea of trash falling over his head.
Yeah, it's so disgusting. Like Indonesia's government, like if you guys are listening, you have to do something on this. You have to put the plastic tax on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's bad.
But at the same time, it's a cool sport. Gets you in shape, gets you in the moment, gets you in that kind of flow. So highly recommend it if anyone has never tried it.
Absolutely. And just going back to what I'd said about surf culture in general, like, and the reason surfers do it, like, there is such a strong connection with nature, and the ocean itself is so rejuvenating. There's a term that divers have, which is like the amphibian response or something like that. Like when your face touches water, your body goes into like sending all the oxygen to your brain, to your heart, to all its vital organs. Because I mean, essentially, we were born in water. In our mother's bellies, full of water. Like we are amphibious in so many ways. So it's like going home for a lot of people who fall in love with this sport. Like getting in that water is like feeling home. You're connected with this wave, this rhythm of the ocean. That's this up and down rhythm. Like it's such a harmonious experience that I think that's what people fall in love with and get brought back to. And then just surf culture in general, has its pros and cons to it, but the connection with the ocean is so real and so rejuvenating. Like no matter how shitty I feel, I can paddle out and instantly feel better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love it, and the goal I think for everyone is to be able to spend as much time doing your passions, whether it's surfing, scuba diving, or traveling, whatever it is, but still have enough money where if something comes up at home or something comes up, you have the money to be able to go back and take care of it, be able to help others, be able to donate to causes that you want or support, as well as just never being that old grumpy guy who feels stuck. Because I think that's a big reason why, divers, but surfers even, are sometimes unhappy because they're stuck and they're like, I can't go back to my normal life. I don't have the money for it. I can't afford to travel. I can't live somewhere nicer if I wanted to. And now, it's not as exciting as it was when it was new. There's more people coming now. It's dirtier, whatever it is, and they just complain. We can be better than that, and I think part of it, I mean, unfortunately, right? It's making more money. I mean, I think that's just life, right? Money doesn't solve everything, but it sure makes life easier and gives us more options.
More convenient for sure. Definitely takes away that stress of paying rent.
Yeah, I love it. So I appreciate you coming on so much. Again, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Surf Pro Techniques is my online website for surfing. Johnny was kind enough to come on my podcast as well, Misfits and Rejects. You can follow me at Misfits and Rejects on Instagram, which is probably the best place to reach out to me if you want to just communicate with me directly.
Okay, really cool. Thanks for having thanks for having me on your show, but also for coming on my show. It wasn't pre-planned. I actually normally never like doing the cross shows because usually they're like kind of contrived and boring. But it was really organic. Where after I did your show and I kind of heard more about your story, I was like, that's something we need to share. So thanks for coming on.
Hey, Johnny, thanks for having me, brother.
All right, see you guys. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.